There's a ton of new gameplay settings in College Football 26 that will have a huge impact on whether you win or lose games that you definitely don't want to leave at default. Everything from passing to defense to kicking, and an entire new section dedicated to wear and tear related substitutions that can have your best players on the sideline when you need them the most.
Who the f is that guy?
So in today's video, I'm going to go over all the best gameplay settings you should be using the second you get this game. But before I do, if this video helps you out at all, please help the channel back by hitting the like button and subscribing for more helpful tips. And let's get right into it. Now, the second you get this game, you're going to want to tab over to the settings tab and go into game settings, which is the top one you're going to see here. And it's going to bring up a ton of stuff here, some of which are more for online gameplay, which I'll mention as I go along. And some are really more for things like Dynasty mode or Play Now mode, where you basically have more control over things like wear and tear, which you don't necessarily have an online game. So I'll try to mention that as I go through it. But at the first, we're going to start off with, you can start with favorite team, but they typically ask you to select that as you go into the game. That's why I got Penn State here. I don't know if I'm able to change that now. I guess I can, but if you ever want to change your favorite team, you can do that. But starting off with offensive playbook, my favorite offensive playbook is definitely not Penn State. My favorite playbook right now, which I can change in offline, I can't necessarily change it in online head-to-head, which is still a bummer, but offensive playbook for me right now is definitely Alabama. I just put out a full ebook and a full breakdown on my Patreon and on my Join Now community tab, as well as on my website, MaddenMoneyShot.com. If you guys need more help with offensive and defensive plays, or like I said, I have an entire breakdown of just basically tips and strategy when it comes to offense and defense, all available on my website. Links in the description below, as well as the top pinned comment if you guys want more information about that. Other than that, my favorite defensive playbook, I put out a video just yesterday saying the best playbooks on offense and defense. I have that popping up on screen at the end of the video. It, to me, is definitely the 3-2-6, which is a super rare playbook. You can't really find this anywhere else. It's not really in a lot of team playbooks. The second best one is the 4-2-5, but since I can choose, I'm going to go with the 3-2-6. You have the option to put even teams, so if you like to play with lower rated teams and you want, it won't change the ratings on screen, but when you go into a game, it'll kind of do that like behind the scenes. So you could be playing against the highest rated team in Alabama and be using your favorite lower rated team, and if you put even teams on, it will make it to the point where it's like you won't see that same 5-star to 1-star difference, but at the end of the day, you'll still see that speed advantage. So I don't know how much that'll really help. When it comes to skill level, I like to use Heisman. If you're playing offline, I think it's best to play in like All-American, because this is probably the closest you'll get to actually like a fair game, where Heisman just like straight up cheats. Like you'll see stupid stuff happen all the time in Heisman because you're playing the computer and the computer knows what play you're running. So a lot of times, say you're running like man coverage or something like that, they'll just blow a man assignment just so the computer can score, because they'll basically set up the game. That makes it very difficult. But like I said, I like to play on Heisman because I like to push my skill level to the highest amount. If you like to play online, I would recommend playing Heisman, because this is going to it's going to sharpen your skills the most. Now, when it comes to quarter length, I think 5 minutes is a good quarter length, so that the games aren't that long. Now, when it comes to coin toss, especially when it comes to online, I would say the best way to go is I want to kick the ball. I want to get a lead and then get the ball at half, and then that's basically puts you in the best position to essentially just extend your lead. You're gonna have if you come out of the tunnel at halftime with a lead and you get the ball and score again, the game's pretty much over if you're up 2 scores, and you can also kill clock at that point. There's a lot of ways to win when it comes to kicking. If you receive and you don't score on the first drive, you're already at a disadvantage, because your opponent's going to get the ball in the second half and you're going to be at the other side of that coin. So to me, kicking's best. Now, when it comes to kicking itself, the control scheme to me is still tap and tap. Tap and hold is just, to me, more difficult. I like the ability to reset my finger. It's really that simple. When it comes to wear and tear, you can just straight take this off if you don't really care for it, but it is a nice little challenge. I would say, if anything, I would probably lower them to about like 60-40. I would take them all the way down. I mean, 50-50 is fine, but I would say if I was running a dynasty and I really didn't want too much impact on these, I'd probably just lower them all to 40, or you can even go to 30, but I wouldn't completely take it off, because I do feel like it's reality. It's part of the game, and a lot of college football teams have enough depth at most positions that it's not to the point where you necessarily want to turn it off. I mean, you can definitely get by, like backup running backs especially, which I'll get to in the auto subs. A lot of teams have tons of running backs on the roster, so it's something here where I would say I'd probably leave the recovery as I accidentally went into that. But this is something where I would say if you wanted to go more on the side of just keeping your best players out there, I'd actually go 60-40, like I was saying. Go 60% recovery time with all these benefits so that your best players are going to be out there most of the game, and then you'll have just a little bit, a little bit nicer than 50-50. You'll have just a little bit more time with your best players, because let's be honest, your backup players might be good, but they're not going to be as fun as your starters. Everybody wants to play with their starters. So to me, 60-40 is fair. When we get to passing, I'm actually going to go into a practice mode to show you guys about what the best passing mechanics are. So I went into a practice mode, and even I wasn't really sure what the best passing type was. If you see my ebooks, I was really going in between, back and forth between placement accuracy and revamped. I couldn't even really figure out what was the best one. So I was actually pretty excited to do this test, where basically I was going to use a play that I used yesterday in my video where I showed the best playbooks from the fade out. And I was essentially going to just basically use a cover 3 won't play touchdown, where all I got to do is motion this guy in and put him on a streak. And then I was going to run this play where I basically just throw to the X receiver, which you'll see right here. He gets open every single time right at the seam. It's kind of the idea. As I'm still in classic passing, and you see in the very first play, classic passing performed the worst. You have the least amount of control. I also scored the least amount of touchdowns. I ran this experiment with all 4 types. Classic passing, I only completed 6 out of 10. Placement, I first completed 6 out of 10, but I didn't really understand why, because that's the one that I used the most. So I did again, and I got 10 out of 10, as it was just completely broken. It just seemed like a smooth catch and run every single time for a touchdown, just about every single time as well. Where, like I said, classic passing, I barely ever scored, based on the fact that it just seemed to not really give me the placement that I needed. And then revamped, I got 9 out of 10 completed. But a lot of times, once again, I got this wonky passing animation that pulled me backwards. I lost acceleration. So I scored a lot less than I did with placement and accuracy, which I also completed 9 out of 10 and got more touchdowns, which I was surprising, because placement accuracy is the only one where if you hit this, green's good, but if you hit this blue, it means it's 100% accurate, or it's supposed to be every single time. So as far as zone was concerned, they were all pretty similar, but like I said, scoring is kind of the key here. So revamp definitely was one of the worst out of the 4. Then I went over to a man concept play. There's a new formation actually called the trips TE offset, where they have a play called the double motion fake jet halfback seam, where I chose the same defense once again every single time, the same cover and hold from the same formation. And this is actually a really cool play where the running back is an easy one play touchdown, so I just throwing it to that every single time. The B receiver on the other side is a cover 3 one play touchdown, by the way, but I had the same issues right here. It looks like he's probably gonna get over the top, but the ball got swatted pretty much every single time when it comes to classic. So we only completed 4 out of 10, which was crazy, because we completed 8 out of 10 in placement. We completed 6 out of 10 when it comes to placement and accuracy, because it was kind of harder to time lob passes, which I kind of expected. And then revamped passing was also 8 out of 10, as that was probably the best. I mean, it felt the easiest when it comes to lobbing to open space where there's no safety over the top. But in total, I would say placement and revamp were pretty similar. I'm going to continue to use placement, because number one, I mean, the accuracy thing is cool, but I didn't really feel a lot of inaccurate passes when it came to placement anyway, and it was a lot easier to complete passes because of the fact that I didn't have to worry about the timing as much. But revamped, even though it felt easier because I didn't have to worry about timing as much either, it really felt like it had less control, and you had less control trying to squeeze it in between zones, which is probably more important when you're playing online head-to-head. So if you're a newer player, I'd recommend revamped passing. But if you are like an online head-to-head player, I would say placement might be the way to go. 2 center options here are really the best 2 options. You're going too far to the negative with classic passing, where you just don't have enough control, and it really shows. Revamp passing is like a better version when you have more control, but you can't see where the reticle is on the field, so it makes it a little more difficult to control exactly where you want to go. Where the placement, you can see the reticle exactly where you want it is, and you can place it exactly where you want it to be, which is really nice. But you don't have the better passing trajectory that you do have in revamp passing. Although, like I said, I really didn't notice in the test that I did is we had the exact same. I mean, the trajectory only really matters when you're lobbing it up over man, and not a lot of people use man online anywhere, at least not as many, so it doesn't feel as important. But ultimately, I didn't notice the difference, because maybe it was because of the play that I chose. but I definitely felt the difference when it came to scoring and squeezing in between zones when it came to placement. Placement felt the best to me, so I'm going to stick with that. Now, when it comes to passing slowdown, I don't really see the point of using this because it only works offline, and if you use this, it's going to make it harder if you want to play online. You're not going to be as used to it with the passing slowdown. So to me, I'd leave that off. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're only going to play offline. You just want to basically see how cool that looks. Pass speed increase, I go with small. And I don't really, I feel like if I go medium or large, the passing increase is just way too big, and I get a lot of overthrows or a lot of bad throws. So I stick with small. The only thing I really mess with is the reticle speed itself, where I typically leave it at 7, but sometimes I'll crank this all the way up to 15. But for now, I'm pretty much just using it at 7, this is kind of important when it comes to leading outside of the reticle, as I find that you have to hold the left trigger to lead outside of the reticle, and I feel like this, if it's too high, it has the same issue if this is too high. So I typically leave this low, but like I said, I'll mess with it, sometimes move it up to 10. Now this next one here, I actually really like. The tackle quality text feedback I don't really care for, but the actual arrow feedback is really cool. This is like a teaching tool on how to hit stick and how to cut stick and stuff like that. If you see this, I got this little green arrow here, and if you try to hit stick too early, it'll come up like, orange or yellow. If you hit stick on time, it'll come up a solid green, and it'll also give you an indicator if you're hit sticking or if you're not tackling centered with the ball carrier. Like say you're too far to the right or too far to the left, you'll see this little green dot on the arrow as to where you are, if you're inside too far or outside too far, or if you're right dead center, it'll be right dead center in the middle. So this I really like, but I also want this to be user only. I don't really want my opponent to know what I'm doing at any point in time, even if it's something as small as this. Now we have a lot of defensive stuff here that I went over last year. We got the auto flip defensive play call. I typically take this off, and a lot of pro players are the same way because we want to design where our blitz is going to be going. If you're not too familiar with the game, leave it on. If you're new to college football or to football games in general, I'd leave it on. But if you've been playing this game a long time, I like to control where my blitz is coming from. I like to control how I set up my defense. So I turn this off, as a lot of times I want to flip this play so that I have a blitzing cornerback outside or something going opposite the running back, which is a tip that I think I showed in yesterday's video again, where it's just going to be an easy way to play the run because of that. It's going to be an easier way to get effective blitzes, because if the running back's blocking isn't on the other side of the field, you're going to have it's going to be harder for him to come over and pick up the blitz. So that to me is important. Defensive ball hawk, there's no real reason to turn this off. As you can see here, it says user control defenders will make auto move to get in a position to catch a ball. Why wouldn't you want them to do that? As that will set you up for a lot of interceptions. Now defensive heat seeker assist, this should be on, and not only that, but it should be set to 200%, because a lot of people here don't realize that 100% is not the highest. 200% and defensive heat seeker on basically is going to user control a defender to steer him towards the ball carrier when attempting to run or dive into them. And if you use a safe tackle function, which is tapping A or X on whether you're an Xbox or PlayStation, it'll actually suction you in a lot. Now we also have switch stick delay here, which is something that I typically leave to slight. I think that's actually a preset now, because if you're setting up your defense and your opponent hikes the ball, you might accidentally switch to somebody you don't want. So slight is probably the best way to go. We also have defensive switch assist. This is something that if you don't use switch assist a lot, you want to have on, but if you're used to it, you don't necessarily want to have it on. This here, basically if you accidentally, or say you try to switch to a defensive player, say you switch to the wrong one, say you think you're going to be the cornerback but you're actually the safety, next thing you're running completely out of the way from the play. So that's something that could just leave like a wide open hole in your coverage. So this is something where, once again, it's based off of your personal experience with the defensive switch assist function. Now the rest of these sliders here are really based off of things like movement and weather and stuff like that. I'll go over these one by one. Fatigue, once again, is kind of on the same level as wear and tear. I would say go 60-40. Once again, just lower this so you get injuries. 10 is probably good. You don't want a ton of injuries. You have player parity scale. I think that as far as the speed, I think 50-50 is fine. You have precipitation, catch chance, 50-50. I mean, all these I think are actually fine. These are all based off of, basically weather elements and how much it'll change the game. I wouldn't actually change these. I actually like these. Next up, we have the auto subs tab, where you have default. You can switch that over to override, and then you have option between normal, keep fresh, grind it out, and custom. Now, I'm probably going to go with custom in most game modes. where we have, I mean, if I'm playing an individual game, and you can always change this in the coaching adjustments in an individual game, grind it out's going to be the way to go. You only got one game, but if you're playing in a season, you're going to want to go keep fresh. After that, I would say my custom settings that I would set it for, 10 seems really low for quarterback, but they're just basing that off the fact that most people don't want their quarterback to sub out. I would raise this because if he's that bad, he's probably going to not be able to throw the ball anyway. So my rule of thumb, once again, would probably be like 60-40, but I would say on a scenario like this, I'd probably go like 30 for him to sub out, and then like 50 for him to come back in at the quarterback, because it's an important position. When it comes to halfback, I would say keep fresh would be the most sense, because I'm not really too unless you have a star running back. Once again, these are all situational, but with the teams that I use, I don't really care what running back I have out there, so I'd probably go 60-40 once again. Receivers, speed's important. That's a little bit different for me. I would say I would lower this to 40. I'd say 60-40 for receiver once again, because I want that. And that would pretty much be my stance across the board. They have sub out at 60, sub in at 80 preset on all these. Once again, quarterback's going to be a little bit different. I would say I would sub out my quarterback lower than that, say once again around 50. It says frequency that this here is for change the frequency of the quarterback being substituting out during a game. 50. I would say I go even lower than that, if I'm being honest. Quarterbacks, typically you have a star, and then like the backup's like a huge drop off. So I'd say like 30 or 40 once again. But for quarterback, that's the one where I would definitely go the furthest. And then running backs, you can sub out without issues. Receivers, once again, not a lot of elite speed guys unless you're using, Georgia or something where you have a lot of really good receivers in the back. I'll drop this to 40, and we'll do tight ends. It depends if you have a really fast tight end or a tight end that you're, whatever position you have a guy where you like, I can't lose that guy. You want to drop down, and make it to the point where it's less likely for them to be subbed out. Linemen, I wouldn't really care about as much, even though obviously there are, some linemen are better than others. But to me, blocking doesn't matter nearly as much. Cornerbacks, I would say, is another position where I don't want my top guys to come out. I dropped that to around 40. So I'm going to end the video there, although I have made a couple more videos about college football 26. If you guys want to check that out, I'll pop it up on screen. Until next time, thanks for watching. Man, my shit out. Need more help or just want to show your support? Then head over to my Patreon and join my team, where you can get exclusive content like ebooks and bonus plays, as well as early access to my vids and more. Link in the description below.